Welcome back to the studio, everyone. I'm Mary, your guide through the exciting world of English, and this is Marcus, who's bravely joining us on this learning journey. We're kicking off our brand new series, How to Learn English, designed to demystify some of the language's most fundamental concepts. Today, we're diving headfirst into two small but mighty words that are absolutely crucial for effective communication: was and were. Now, if you've been following my previous work, you know I love to make language learning fun and relatable, often drawing on pop culture and real-life examples. And this series will be no different. You might be thinking, why dedicate an entire segment to was and were? Well, these two words are the very bedrock of expressing past events in English. They are the past tense forms of the verb to be, and without them, telling a story, describing something that happened yesterday, or even talking about your childhood becomes incredibly difficult, if not impossible. Think about it. Every time you recount an experience, whether it's what you did last weekend, how you felt about a movie, or where you were born, you'll likely use was or were. They allow us to establish states of being, locations, and conditions in the past. Mastering them is like unlocking a whole new dimension of English conversation. For many learners, was and were are a common source of confusion. I've heard countless examples of people accidentally saying, I was happy yesterday, or mixing up he were with he was. These are absolutely normal mistakes, and I want to assure you that they are easily corrected with a little focused attention and practice. We're going to break down exactly when to use each word, provide clear explanations, and give you plenty of practical examples to solidify your understanding. By the end of this session, you'll feel much more confident using these essential past tense forms. Marcus is here with us today as a fantastic stand-in for all of you learning at home. He's eager to improve his English, and like many of you, he sometimes grapples with these tricky grammatical points. His presence helps us highlight common struggles and the urgency of truly grasping these concepts. You see, mastering was and were isn't just about passing a grammar test. It unlocks a vast array of conversational possibilities. Imagine being able to effortlessly describe your last vacation, share memories with friends, or talk about historical events. These words are your gateway to expressing yourself fully when discussing anything that happened before this very moment. They connect you to the past, allowing you to build richer, more detailed narratives in English. For this session, you really don't need any special materials. Just bring your enthusiasm and an open mind. However, if you like to take notes, a pen and paper or a notebook can be incredibly helpful for jotting down examples or rules that resonate with you. The most important requirement is your willingness to engage. That means actively listening to our explanations, repeating the examples aloud to practice your pronunciation and build muscle memory. And most importantly, trying to form your own sentences. Please don't be afraid to make mistakes. Marcus certainly won't be. And that's part of the learning process. Mistakes are just opportunities for growth. As you continue your English journey, a few resources can be invaluable. An English dictionary, whether a physical book or an online app, is always a great companion. Grammar practice websites and apps can offer additional exercises, and immersing yourself in English-speaking media like movies, music, and podcasts will naturally expose you to these words in context. To get the most out of this video, I suggest finding a quiet place where you can focus without distractions. Feel free to pause the video at any point to take notes, try out an exercise, or simply let a concept sink in. We're here to make this learning experience as smooth and effective as possible for you. For this session, you really don't need any special materials. Just bring your enthusiasm and an open mind. However, if you like to take notes, a pen and paper or a notebook can be incredibly helpful for jotting down examples or rules that resonate with you. The most important requirement is your willingness to engage. That means actively listening to our explanations, repeating the examples aloud to practice your pronunciation and build muscle memory. And most importantly, trying to form your own sentences. Please don't be afraid to make mistakes. Marcus certainly won't be, and that's part of the learning process. Mistakes are just opportunities for growth. As you continue your English journey, A few resources can be invaluable. An English dictionary, whether a physical book or an online app, is always a great companion. Grammar practice websites and apps can offer additional exercises, and immersing yourself in English-speaking media like movies, music, and podcasts will naturally expose you to these words in context. To get the most out of this video, I suggest finding a quiet place where you can focus without distractions. Feel free to pause the video at any point to take notes, try out an exercise, or simply let a concept sink in. We're here to make this learning experience as smooth and effective as possible for you. Now, let's dive into the core of our lesson, understanding was. Was is the past tense form of the verb to be. It's used when we talk about a single person or thing, or when the subject is I, he, she, or it. Think of it as the singular past form. So, if you're referring to yourself, you'll say I was. If you're talking about a male friend, he was. A female friend, she was. And for an object or an abstract concept, it was. The rule is quite straightforward. Singular subject, singular past verb. Let's look at some affirmative examples to make this crystal clear. I'll say them, and Marcus, feel free to repeat after me to get that pronunciation down. First, I was happy. Simple, right? It describes a past state of being. Next, he was a student. This tells us about someone's past profession or role. Then, she was at home. This indicates a past location. And finally, it was a sunny day. This describes a past condition or weather. Marcus, would you like to try forming one of your own using was? I was hungry, Marcus offers with a slight nod. Excellent, Marcus. That's a perfect example. You've clearly grasped how to use was in an affirmative sentence. Now, let's move on to negative sentences with was. To make a sentence negative, we simply add not after was. For example, I was not sad. Often, in spoken English, we use contractions to make it sound more natural. So, was not becomes wasn't. Let's practice with contractions. I wasn't sad. He wasn't a teacher. She wasn't at work. It wasn't cold. These contractions are very common, so it's good to get used to them. Finally, let's explore how to form questions using was. When we ask a question, we invert the subject and was. So, instead of he was busy, it becomes was he busy? The was moves to the beginning of the sentence. Try these. Was I late? Was he busy? Was she there? Was it good? This inversion is a key characteristic of English questions. Was I wrong? Marcus asks, testing the structure. Absolutely. Another great example, Marcus. You're catching on quickly. The scenarios where you'll use was are incredibly common. You'll use it to describe past states or conditions, like I was tired yesterday, or the coffee was hot. You'll also use it to talk about someone's past profession or location, such as my grandfather was a doctor, or she was in London last year. Even describing events like the concert was amazing uses was. Think of any time you need to express that something was a certain way in the past. And was will be your go-to word for singular subjects. It's fundamental for building those narrative bridges to yesterday, last week, or even years ago. This foundation for was is crucial, and it seamlessly leads us into understanding its counterpart, were. Just like was is the past tense of to be, for singular subjects, were serves the same purpose for plural subjects, and notably for the pronoun you, whether it refers to one person or many. This is a common point of confusion, so remember, you were is always correct, never you was, even if you're talking to a single individual. For all other plural subjects like we or they, quick were is the form you'll use. It's about aligning the verb with the number of people or things you're discussing in the past. Let's practice with some affirmative sentences using were. I'll give you the examples, and Marcus, try repeating them to get comfortable with the sound and rhythm. First, you were kind. This describes a past quality of someone or a group of people. Next, we were friends. This tells us about a past relationship. Then, they were excited. This communicates a past emotional state for a group. And finally, the books were heavy. This describes a past characteristic of multiple objects. Marcus, do you want to try forming one of your own with were? Perhaps about something you and your friends did. Marcus pauses, thinking. My friends and I were at the park yesterday, he offers, a confident smile spreading across his face. Fantastic, Marcus. That's an excellent example, perfectly illustrating the use of were with a plural subject. You've got the hang of it. Now, let's explore how to construct negative sentences with were. Similar to was, we simply insert not after were. So, you were not rude becomes a negative statement. And just like with was not becoming wasn't, were not contracts to weren't in everyday conversation. This contraction is incredibly common and will make your English sound much more natural. Let's try some. You weren't rude. We weren't enemies. They weren't bored. The children weren't quiet. Getting comfortable with weren't is a great step towards fluent communication. Moving on to questions. The pattern for were is identical to was. We invert the subject and were, placing were at the beginning of the sentence. So, if you have the statement, you are ready, the question becomes, were you ready? It's a straightforward grammatical transformation. Let's try these examples. Were you ready? Were we right? Were they home? Were the doors open? This inversion is a consistent rule for forming simple past tense questions with to-be verbs. Were you busy last night? Marcus asks, framing a perfect question. Precisely, Marcus. You're demonstrating a solid understanding of this structure. The scenarios for using were are just as diverse and common as those for was. Maisha, you'll frequently use were when talking about groups of people or multiple things in the past. For instance, my parents were always supportive describes a past characteristic of two people. The students were attentive during the lecture talks about a group's behavior. Or, the problems were difficult to solve refers to multiple challenging situations. You can describe multiple past events or conditions, such as we were on vacation last month, or the lights were off when I arrived. Think about any time you need to convey that multiple subjects were in a certain state, location, or condition in the past, and were is the word you'll choose. It's essential for painting those broader pictures of past events involving more than one subject. Mastering both was and were unlocks a huge part of your ability to talk about the past in English, laying the groundwork for more complex narratives. The power of were extends to countless situations, truly enriching your ability to recall and share past experiences. Now that we've thoroughly explored both was and were individually, it's time to bring them together and tackle the most common challenge, distinguishing between them. This is where many learners stumble, but with a clear understanding of the core rule, it becomes much simpler. The key distinction, the golden rule you need to engrave in your mind, is singular versus plural subjects. It's really that straightforward. If your subject is one person or one thing, you almost always use was. Think I was, he was, she was, it was. If your subject refers to more than one person or thing, then were is your go-to. This applies to we were and they were. The one slightly tricky exception, which is crucial to remember, is you. Whether you refers to one person or many, you always use were. So, you were happy is correct whether you're talking to a single friend or a whole group. This specific rule for you is a common pitfall, so make a mental note of it. To solidify this distinction, let's dive into some practical exercises. The best way to learn is by doing, so I encourage everyone watching to participate along with Marcus. First, we'll do some fill in the blanks. I'll give you a sentence, and you choose either was or were to complete it. Don't be afraid to say your answer out loud. Here's the first one. My cat. Ik zeik sleeping. Marcus, what do you think? My cat was sleeping. Marcus confidently replies, because my cat is just one. Exactly. Perfect reasoning. Next. The students are studying. The students were studying, Marcus says, without hesitation. Many students. Excellent. you're clearly grasping the singular plural concept. How about this one? The weather, it was beautiful yesterday. The weather was beautiful. Marcus answers. Weather is singular. Fantastic. You're nailing these. Now, let's try a slightly different exercise, correcting sentences. I'll give you a sentence with an incorrect usage of was or were, and your job is to fix it. This helps you actively identify and correct errors, which is a powerful learning tool. First sentence, they was happy. They were happy. Marcus corrects almost immediately. Spot on. And the next one, she were tired. She was tired, Marcus states, his voice firm. You're doing incredibly well, Marcus. These exercises highlight how quickly you can internalize the rules with focused practice. Now, let's anticipate some common tricky cases that learners often encounter. We've already covered you, always taking were, regardless of whether it's singular or plural. That's a big one. Another common scenario involves compound subjects. For example, if you say John and Mary boo hola at the party, what would you use? Marcus thinks for a moment. John and Mary are two people, so were. John and Mary were at the party. Absolutely correct. When you have two or more subjects joined by and, it becomes a plural subject requiring were. Lastly, let's touch on collective nouns. These can sometimes be confusing. A collective noun refers to a group of individuals, is a single unit like team, family, or government. Generally, when the collective noun acts as a single unit, we use was. So, the team was victorious. However, if you're emphasizing the individual members of that group, you might use were. For instance, the players were all celebrating. This is a more advanced nuance, but it's good to be aware of it. My advice for now is to focus on the main rule. Singular subject was, plural subject were. Don't let these exceptions overwhelm you. They'll become more intuitive with continued exposure. To make this even more interactive, I want to encourage everyone watching to type their own sentences using was or were in the comment section below. Share your examples, and you can even try to correct each other's sentences. Marcus and I will be looking out for some of your creative sentences. This interactive segment is a fantastic way to solidify everything we've discussed today. Seeing how you apply was and were in your own sentences helps reinforce the learning process, not just for you, but for others in the community as well. Remember, making mistakes is part of learning, so don't be shy. We love seeing your engagement and creativity in the comments. We'll even pick out a few to highlight in a future session, so get those sentences flowing. Now, let's recap the main points we've covered. We started by understanding that was and were are both past tense forms of the verb to be. The crucial distinction lies in the subject of your sentence. Was is used for singular subjects. I, he, she, and it. Think of it as referring to one person or one thing. For example, I was happy, he was a doctor, she was at the park, or it was raining. Each of these sentences focuses on a single entity or state in the past. Conversely, were is used for plural subjects. We, they, hutua, and always for you, whether you refers to one person or many. This is a common point of confusion, so it's worth reiterating. You were kind is correct, even if you're speaking to just one individual. Other examples include we were friends and they were excited. The key here is to remember that were signifies plurality or the special case of you. We also explored how to form negative sentences and questions using was and were. For negatives, you simply add not after the verb I was not sad or they were not bored. We also looked at the convenient contractions, wasn't and weren't, which are very common in spoken English. For questions, you invert the subject and the verb. Was he busy or were you ready? This simple inversion is a fundamental aspect of forming questions in English. To truly master was and were, continuous exposure and practice are your best allies. One excellent tip is to immerse yourself in English language media. Pay close attention to how was and were are used in songs, movies, TV shows, and podcasts. You'll start to notice patterns and internalize the correct usage without even consciously trying. For instance, if you're watching a movie and a character says, "I was terrified," pause for a moment and think about why was used. Or if they say they were running late, consider the plural subject. Another practical tip is to practice speaking about your past experiences. Describe your day yesterday, your weekend, or a childhood memory, making a conscious effort to use was and were correctly. Don't worry about perfection. Just focus on getting the words out. For example, you might say, "Yesterday, I was at work, and it was very busy. My colleagues were also working hard." This active recall helps cement the grammar in your mind. Journaling can also be incredibly effective. Write short entries about past events, focusing on describing what happened, where you were, and how you felt. "Last night I was tired, so I stayed home. The movie I watched was interesting." This written practice reinforces the rules in a low-pressure environment. Finally, if you're a visual learner, flashcards can be a great tool. Write a subject pronoun on one side and was or were on the other. Quiz yourself regularly until the connections become automatic. Marcus, I know this can feel like a lot to absorb, and sometimes learners get anxious about making mistakes. How are you feeling about it all? "It makes sense when you explain it, Mary," Marcus responds, a slight furrow in his brow. "But then when I go to speak, I worry I'll mix them up. It's like my brain was working, but then it weren't. Wait, it wasn't. See, I almost did it." That's a perfectly normal feeling, Marcus, and it's something almost every language learner experiences. The fact that you caught your mistake and corrected yourself in real time shows incredible progress. It means your brain is making those connections, and with consistent practice, that hesitation will diminish. The goal isn't to be perfect overnight. It's to be consistent and patient with yourself. Every time you try, every time you make a mistake and correct it, you're building those neural pathways. You've taken a significant step today towards mastering a fundamental aspect of English grammar. Keep practicing these forms and don't be afraid to experiment. If you need to, watch this video again, pause it, take notes, and repeat the examples. In our next session, we'll delve into other past tenses and perhaps even tackle some irregular verbs, building on this strong foundation. So, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave your practice sentences or any questions in the comments below. We truly appreciate your dedication to learning, and we'll see you next time. That's a perfectly normal feeling, Marcus, and it's something almost every language learner experiences. The fact that you caught your mistake and corrected yourself in real time shows incredible progress. It means your brain is making those connections, and with consistent practice, that hesitation will diminish. The goal isn't to be perfect overnight. It's to be consistent and patient with yourself. Every time you try, every time you make a mistake and correct it, you're building those neural pathways. You've taken a significant step today towards mastering a fundamental aspect of English grammar. Let's quickly recap what we covered, just to solidify those key concepts. Remember, was is your go-to for singular subjects. I was, he was, she was, and it was. Think about a single person or thing in the past. Then we have were, which serves our plural subjects. We were, they were, and also the versatile you were, whether you're talking to one person or many. We explored how to use them in affirmative statements, negative statements using not, and those handy contractions like wasn't and weren't. And finally, how to form questions by simply inverting the subject and the verb. These simple rules, when applied consistently, will dramatically improve your ability to talk about the past. Now, beyond just memorizing the rules, there are some extra tips that can really accelerate your mastery of was and were. First, continue with the immersion I mentioned earlier. Make it a game. How many times can you spot was or were in your favorite English song lyrics? Can you identify the subject they refer to? This active listening and analysis will make the usage feel more intuitive. Second, push yourself to practice speaking. Don't shy away from conversations where you need to describe past events. Even if it's just telling a friend about your morning coffee, consciously try to weave in was or were. The more you articulate these forms, the more natural they'll become. Third, embrace journaling. It's a low-pressure way to practice writing in English, and it naturally lends itself to use on past tenses. Describe your thoughts from yesterday, recount a memorable trip, or simply list things you did last week. For example, last Saturday, I was at the park, and the weather was beautiful. My friends were there too, and we were all very happy. This builds muscle memory for your brain. And fourth, if you're a fan of old-school learning tools, flashcards can be surprisingly effective. Write a subject pronoun on one side, I, they, you, and on the other, write was or were accordingly. Quiz yourself frequently until the correct pairing is instantaneous. Marcus, I know this can feel like a lot to absorb, and sometimes learners get anxious about making mistakes. How are you feeling about it all? It makes sense when you explain it, Mary, Marcus responds, a slight furrow in his brow. But then, when I go to speak, I worry I'll mix them up. It's like my brain was working, but then it weren't. Wait. It wasn't, see? I almost did it. That's a perfectly normal feeling, Marcus, and it's something almost every language learner experiences. The fact that you caught your mistake and corrected yourself in real time shows incredible progress. It means your brain is making those connections, and with consistent practice, that hesitation will diminish. The goal isn't to be perfect overnight. It's to be consistent and patient with yourself. Every time you try, every time you make a mistake and correct it, you're building those neural pathways. You've taken a significant step today towards mastering a fundamental aspect of English grammar. Keep practicing these forms and don't be afraid to experiment. If you need to, watch this video again, pause it, take notes, and repeat the examples. In our next session, we'll delve into other past tenses and perhaps even tackle some irregular verbs, building on this strong foundation. So, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave your practice sentences or any questions in the comments below. We truly appreciate your dedication to learning, and we'll see you next time.